Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Book Club. Today, we will be asking those burning questions to your favorite characters from the novels that keep making it on the banned books list. Why do we keep banning some of our favorite books? Let's see what we can learn from these characters today. The first question we have today was, why was your novel banned? We have Jesse Oliver Andrews Jr. here from his story, Bridge to Terabitha. Let's see what he has to say.
People tell me that my story was banned because we didn't really go to church or have any thought about God and all. People think I'm against religion, but I'm just a kid trying to make it, and I know there's a bunch of rules to follow with church. Others think I talk badly and swear a lot, but I just talk like anyone else. I don't mean any offense by it. I just want to tell my story with my voice. People don't like that we made this imaginary world, but it was ours and a place to escape to, and the rest of us harmed by it. Or to say that you need to follow some pretend set of rules or voodoo. I am sorry that Leslie had her fall and died, but that was the hardest on me because we were so close. I didn't mean to scare anyone by telling you about it. I just wanted to help others.
Now let's hear from Charles Wallace from A Wrinkle in Time.
The book was banned because there was a Christian group that believed Mrs. Witch, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Whatsit were promoting Satanism. However, it was all a disguise put on in front of humans. They also had to disguise themselves to talk to Meg, Calvin, and I in public. I personally did not think it was their best attire, and apparently some of the readers also disagreed. Another thing that really flustered some readers was when Calvin listed Jesus, Buddha, and Gandhi amongst some of the world's greatest scientists, philosophers, and spiritual leaders and artists, since God is a very controversial topic which led to the discussion of banning.
Now let's hear from Bartimaeus from The Amulet of Samarkand.
My book was banned because someone was scared about the book being about magic and demons and such, even though humans are way scarier.
Now let's hear from Gandalf the Grey, who recently got promoted to Gandalf the White from The Lord of the Rings.
Contained magic and witchcraft. The book was even burned by a Christian church because they believed the books were promoting satanic views and occults.
Here is the next question. Could those reasons be potentially accurate? Jess, would you like to take this one?
I guess maybe I should clean up my language a bit, but if I don't tell you my story in my own words, you wouldn't know it was coming for me. I think the religion and witchcrafty thing is just stillness because we didn't want others to do what we do, but see how we are able to help each other through our imaginations. I can see how maybe it might scare a kid or to hear of another one dying, but we all experience that sooner or later in life.
Charles, what's your take on it?
I understand why those people did not like Mrs. Who, Mrs. Witch, and Mrs. Whatsit, because they thought they were promoting Satanism, but really, they weren't even witches. I know different because I witnessed it firsthand in Uriel. Mrs. Whatsit transformed into a unique centaur figure with wings. She was the furthest thing from a witch. Also, I do understand why they were upset about mentioning God as an important figure, because some people do not believe in God.
How about you, Bartimaeus?
Maybe. Though as I said before, humans are scarier, especially the magicians. They are more dangerous and conniving than a demon any day.
Last but not least, what do you say, Gandalf?
Such as myself, dark forces attempting to dominate the whole of Middle-earth. But no, it does not promote satanic views and witchcraft or occult. In fact, the whole story revolves around Frodo and the Fellowship, their quest to destroy and defeat evil.
Interesting. Here's the next question. Do you yourself agree with banning books? Jess, would you like to take this one?
I don't agree with banning books because it's good for kids to hear what others have to say. We need to learn about different experiences that we don't get to cite. I know Leslie came from the big city, and it really helped me learn stuff to hear about her experiences. We should not ban books.
Charles, what's your take on it?
Do I agree with banning books for those reasons? Definitely not. I understand how people could be upset with my friends for dressing up like that, but to not give kids the opportunity to hear our story about saving my dad is obscure. Honestly, if people would have realized the reasons behind why they dress like that, it wouldn't be an issue. Then they do not like that Calvin considers God to be an important figure. They do not have to like it. They can't help how they feel and who they feel are worthy of praise. To avoid bringing any controversy, he listed Gandhi and Buddha as well, but according to the critics, that made him appear liberal.
How about you, Bartimus?
Now, as I said before, humans are scarier, especially the magicians. They are more dangerous and conniving than a demon any day.
Last but not least, what do you say, Gandalf?
Absolutely not. How many stories will never be told? How many legends never to be made? How many heroes will not arise? How many children will go to bed without a story, all because someone considered it inappropriate? Wizards spend their lifetime studying books and magic to gain wisdom of the world and their trade. Sure, there are many books on dark magic and necromancer ways, but as a wizard I must know these darkness in order to look out for them and know when it is afoot, such as this dark magic green. To turn away from any knowledge would hinder my own ability for more wisdom. A wizard such as my old friend Sauron may choose to study these dark magic, but it is his choice to do it, his own choice to support evil. The books never made him that way. If the dark books never existed, that would not stop him from knowing about magic. He would simply have found another way to discover its dark power, if he so desired. One cannot simply ignore the fact that there is evil, much like the hobbits of the Shire did for so many years. It caught up to them eventually, and one day it would have enslaved them, helpless and oblivious as they were, if not for Frodo and I in my warnings.
If your book was to be rewritten by the author, eliminating those controversial issues, would the book still have the same effect on the reader?
No, because I don't think we would have a book if we took out everything that made people upset. If you took out how I talk, our imaginary world, the interactions between my family, and the lack of a religion, and the death of my girlfriend, Leslie, we would not have anything left.
Charles, what's your take on it?
If those issues were to be eliminated, I do not think it would entirely destroy the novel, but at the same time, I believe that it will make the novel less interesting. For example, Mrs. Witch talks in a unique way. She speaks through quotes and songs. In several parts of the novel, she says certain quotes that resemble Psalms, Corinthians, and several other biblical passages. Eliminating all religious aspects of the book would destroy her character altogether, whereas changing Mrs. Witch, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Whatsit from the witch disguise to something else would be less drastic and not change the foundation of the story.
How about you, Bartimus?
If the author rewrote the story without magic or demons, there wouldn't really be a story. Now would there?
Last but not least, what do you say, Gandalf?
If our story were to be rewritten without the darkness and the magic, there simply would be no legend to tell, or it would at the very least be quite boring. The imagination and entertainment would be lost without the fantasy and the magic. The journey of triumphs, victories, loss, maturity through struggle and wisdom gained would never have happened without the opposing darkness. The messages for the reader would be completely altered. It would be an insult and a tragedy.
If the author was an active Christian, do you believe he or she was wrong to express their beliefs in their writing? Jess, would you like to take this one?
It doesn't matter the views of the author because they are writing about my life, not theirs. If they were writing about themselves, then you would get their views. Catherine Peterson wanted to write about my life and story to inform people how we lived and what happened to us.
Charles, what's your take on it?
In the back of the book, there's a section that has questions for the author. When Miss L. answered one of those questions, she talked about being an active Christian her whole life. If anyone were to read my story, you would clearly see that Mrs. L. expressed her beliefs in her writing. Whether it is biblical passages or other references to God, stopping someone from stating his or her own belief or opinion because someone else thinks differently is unfair and unconstitutional.
How about you, Bartimus?
I'm not really sure who this Christian is that you're talking about. Next question.
Last but not least, what do you say, Gandalf?
I believe an author may write as he means to. The experiences and influence in his or her life, including religious beliefs, are what make a person who they are, and thus the writing as it is, too. By freedom and right, the author should not be afraid to include any belief or faith. It is up to the reader to decide whether or not they agree. A wise man or wizard respects all beings in faith, even those they deny.
How do you feel banning books violates the First Amendment right? Jess, would you like to take this one?
The First Amendment gives us the right for self-expression free of government interference. So I think all those people that don't want others to read my story is wrong. If people want to hear and me and my terror be the world, they would be great, because then Leslie's life would not have been for no reason.
Charles, what's your take on it?
Banning books definitely violates the First Amendment right because authors are having their works removed from shelves only because a person disagrees with its content. If that was the case, I'm sure every library would be empty. Miss Leangle never intended for people to be offended by her work. She just wanted people to hear our story and for people to experience the adventures we went through.
How about you, Bartimus?
What's a First Amendment right? All I know is that once I'm summoned by a master, I don't have any rights or freedoms at all. So why should anyone else?
Last but not least, what do you say, Gandalf?
Banning books violates freedom of speech and freedom of religion. It hinders and suppresses anyone's right to freedom. This is exactly what the Dark Lord in The Lord of the Rings has tried to do, to encompass everyone under one power, promoting his way and no other. Banning books hinders the author's expression and the reader's interest by enforcing their view as totalitarianism.
Do you believe the novel could potentially sway readers to act or behave in a harmful way? Jess, would you like to take this one?
Maybe my language might encourage kids to try and use my way of speaking. But if they have parents that don't want them to speak that way, they will stop them. I don't think anyone is going not go to church because I don't. I think everyone has a different life, and it's neat to hear about the way someone else lives. It doesn't mean you're going to live that way.
Charles, what's your take on it?
I do not think the novel would sway readers to act or behave in a harmful way at all. If anything, this book was created to explore your imaginations while we tesseract to different planets and experience different cultures and creatures. Maybe it will cause a child to potentially dress as a character for Halloween or something of that nature, but that is not harmful to anyone. That is the wonderful thing about writing, because you can create anything with the stretch of the imagination, and anyone should be allowed to express him or herself without being penalized.
How about you, Bartimus?
Not really. It doesn't tell you how to become a real magician or anything, nor does it give one the detailed information needed to summon a demon like me.
Last but not least, what do you say, Gandalf?
Absolutely not. As I mentioned before with my friend Sauron, it was not the books or the access of any kind to dark magic that made him desire it. It was his own choice.
And that is all we have for this edition of the Book Club. Thank you for joining us.